I kept my hands to myself, like a promise on a shelf. Kept the fire in my chest, kept my wanting underdress. But you look at me like that, and it all comes rushing back. All the nights I made it through, waiting just to get to you. Now the ring is on my hand, now I know I can love you out loud, love you slow, let it show. Now that we're married, I can hold you close. Now that we're married, I can want you most. Kiss me like you mean it, hold me like you need it. Now that we're married, my hands can roam free. Now that we're married, ooh, you belong to me.
The sunlight spilled through the curtains. Outside, the ocean barely stirred. Palm trees swayed with the breeze, the island was quiet. Inside, not so much. 2 pillows were tossed onto the floor, a blanket hung halfway off the bed. A bath towel had somehow landed in the corner. One of Mee-Mee's heels sat near the doorway. And her bonnet, well, nobody seemed to know where that ended up. Mee-Mee slowly woke. She opened her eyes, stretched like a cat, and a smile spread across her face. She looked around. Then she looked at Joo-Won. He was already awake, and it hadn't all been a dream. She took it all in. Okay, Joo-Won questioned. What? She stared at him. I didn't know I signed up for all that. Joo-Won blinked. All what? She narrowed her eyes. Don't do that. He casually ran a hand over his buzz cut. Do what? Mee-Mee turned her head and tried not to smile, the innocent thing. Then his little smile appeared, the one fans knew. Mee-Mee laughed and shook her head. This is the same man who never talks in interviews. Joo-Won smiled. I talk. Barely. I'm a good listener. Facts, I'll give you that. He gently brushed a loose strand of hair away from her face. Her hair was now gloriously wild. The beautiful blowout that Keisha spent hours perfecting for the wedding officially surrendered sometime after Joo-Won walked in on her bubble bath last night. Neither of them said another word. They simply looked at each other. Happy. Safe. Completely in love, they both started giggling. The kind of laughter only 2 people who shared an unforgettable night could understand. Then knock knock, they both froze. Mee-Mee slowly turned toward the door. Who is that? Joo-Won already knew. The door opened and Bruno stepped inside, completely professional, completely unfazed. Good morning, he said. Mee-Mee instantly pulled the sheet higher to cover herself. Bruno, she said. Yes. You don't notice anything. Bruno calmly surveyed the room. The pillows. Blanket, the unmistakable state of the honeymoon suite. I noticed housekeeping hasn't arrived yet. A beat. Then he added, your breakfast reservation is in 20 minutes. Joo-Won sat up. Breakfast. And the photographer Ingrid scheduled arrives at 10. Mee-Mee's eyes widened. Photographer. Bruno nodded. For the honeymoon album. Mee-Mee looked at Joo-Won. We have a honeymoon album. Ji-sun insisted. It's good for the fans. And Princess Mel, well, she said it would be, and I quote, cute. Mee-Mee smiled knowingly. Of course she did. Bruno stepped closer and handed Joo-Won his phone. An itinerary filled the screen. Breakfast, photography, lunch, snorkeling with whale sharks, a couple's massage, dinner, a sunset cruise. Everything had a time, everything had a location. Joo-Won looked up. Bruno. Yes. Who made our honeymoon itinerary? Ingrid, with input from Princess Mel, Rosie, and my boss, Ji-sun. Mee-Mee let out a dramatic sigh. I had very different plans for today. Joo-Won glanced at her with a grin. Me too. Bruno simply nodded. I'll inform the restaurant you'll be delayed. He turned and walked toward the door. Mee-Mee watched him leave. He can't keep walking in here like that. She gestured toward herself, seeing all the goodies. Joo-Won chuckled. I'll talk to him. A beat. This is new for him too. We've been married less than a day. Mee-Mee laughed. He makes us feel like we're both Whitney. Our bodyguard loves us. Joo-Won shook his head. Nah. I think he tolerates us. From outside the bungalow, I heard that. Mee-Mee burst into laughter. He sounds just like Ingrid. Joo-Won smiled. As Mee-Mee lifted both hands above her head and unsuccessfully tried to finger-comb her hair, the sheet slipped. Joo-Won watched her with the exact same look he had given her before removing her garter a day ago at the reception. She caught him staring. Can I help you, Juju? He leaned over and softly kissed her neck. Mrs. Park. Another kiss. You did sign up for all this. Mee-Mee laughed. Then, without taking his eyes off his wife, Joo-Won called toward the door, "Bruno," a beat. "We can't make breakfast." A pause from somewhere outside the bungalow. "I'll notify the kitchen." Mee-Mee dissolved into giggles, and judging by the laughter echoing through the bungalow, whatever all this meant, Joo-Won clearly hadn't been finished explaining it. Welcome back to Christmas in Old Towne Love Stories, where Mee-Mee and Joo-Won had just begun their happily ever after. But sometime soon, another chapter was quietly starting for another couple. Let's get back to the Newlyweds. Much later that same day, the honeymoon photo shoot was finally underway. For the occasion, Ingrid had made sure the closet was stocked with designer gowns and perfectly tailored suiting. Once upon a time, the world of luxury had felt foreign to Mee-Mee. But after a year beside Joo-Won, her own journey from influencer to international celebrity had changed everything. She was no longer just visiting this world. She was beginning to realize she belonged in it. Mee-Mee held a dress up to her neck. "Okay, Ingrid, she might get on my nerves, but my girl got me looking right." Joo-Won glanced down at his new understated John Lobb loafers. "Yeah, she's on that silent luxury." Mee-Mee's eyes lit up. "Maybe this photo shoot isn't such a terrible idea." Joo-Won laughed. The turquoise waters of the Maldives sparkled behind them as the resort photographer team captured what would one day become treasured memories. Some candid, some romantic. They were no strangers to the spotlight. Joo-Won had been in front of cameras since he was 16, and Mee-Mee had built her own world by sharing her life with others. But on this day, neither of them had to pretend. The smiles, the laughter, the love. It was all real. Every time the photographer adjusted his lens, he smiled. "Perfect." Mee-Mee smiled at Joo-Won, then looked down. "Oh, my baby has cute toes. I've never seen your feet before." He looked down, then back up. He said with a smile, "And last night was my first time seeing your toes up close." Mee-Mee immediately started uncontrollably giggling. Bruno cleared his throat extra loudly, looking at his watch. The photographer chuckled as he snapped another photo. "Keep talking." Mee-Mee slid her fingers through his buzz cut, smoothing it slightly. Joo-Won looked at her. "Thanks for noticing." She shrugged. "Boy, I notice everything about you." He smiled. "I see." The photographer snapped another photo. Without thinking, Joo-Won reached for her hand, not for the picture, just because it felt natural. Mee-Mee glanced down at their fingers, their two rings nestled together, then back at him. She smiled. The photographer lowered his camera. "I think we got the cover." Not far away, Bruno's phone buzzed. It was Ingrid. He answered immediately. "Miss Ingrid. Status. The photo shoot is running 3 minutes ahead of schedule." "And the couple?" Bruno looked toward the shoreline. Mee-Mee convinced Joo-Won to walk into the surf. She splashed water toward him. He stepped aside. The splash somehow landed back on her instead. She laughed so hard she nearly lost her balance. Without hesitation, Joo-Won reached out, one hand lightly catching her elbow before she could stumble. She looked at him. "Thank you, Juju baby." He simply kissed her palm. Bruno watched another moment. "They appear," a pause, "very married." Ingrid sighed. "Okay, good, I'll let Princess Mel know." Then Bruno asked, "How are you feeling?" Ingrid paused. "Are you asking me?" Bruno said, "Yes." A brief silence. For a sec, she remembered the reception. Joo-Won dragging the garter off Mee-Mee with his teeth, the room spinning, and Bruno catching her before she fell, the strength in his arms. The calm certainty that she was safe. Then she quickly returned to business. "I'm fine." Another beat. "Ji-sun told me you would be with the Newlyweds throughout the honeymoon." "I am. She said you'd be the point person while they're here." "That's correct." "Then I'll check in with you for updates. Thank you, Bruno." "You're welcome, Miss Ingrid." They both lingered for a second, like there was something else that needed to be said. But no one said anything, at least not on this day, and the call ended. Later, after several fit changes, the photographer packed away her equipment. Mee-Mee's phone rang. She answered on speaker, Adrienne. The screen filled with the familiar sounds of Keisha's salon. Hair dryers, laughter, 3 conversations happening at once. Adrienne smiled from Keisha's chair. "Hey," Mee-Mee grinned. "Hey, girl," she tilted her head. "So," a beat. "Who are you getting cute for?" Adrienne smiled. "I'm flying to LA tomorrow." "For what?" "I'm teaching that K-pop guy how I dance." Mee-Mee laughed. "Which K-pop guy?" Adrienne shrugged. "The cute, serious one." Mee-Mee slowly turned toward Joo-Won. He overhead and was already smiling. "I know exactly who she's talking about." Almost on cue, his phone rang. It was Seo-Jun. Joo-Won answered, "Annyeonghaseyo. I'll be in LA tomorrow." "I know." A pause. "You do." "Adrienne just told Mee-Mee." Seo-Jun blinked. "Oh," another pause. "She's helping with some new choreography for the tour." Adrienne. Yes. Mee-Mee's cousin. Yes, a beat. Interesting. Seo-Jun frowned. Why? Joo-Won looked at Mee-Mee with a raised brow. She was trying not to laugh. Oh, no reason, he said. Later that afternoon in the Maldives, Mee-Mee sat at the vanity, took down her ponytail, attempting to detangle the glorious aftermath that was once her bridal hairstyle. Her phone rang. It was Jenny. Mee-Mee answered on video. Jenny took one look at her, a beat. She jutted her head back. Oh. Another beat. Your hair tells me everything I need to know. Mee-Mee looked up. You are crazy. Jenny folded her arms. Just saying, you look like you had a really good night. Mee-Mee immediately knew where this was going. Jenny. What? I'm asking as a friend. A beat. So, Jenny leaned closer to the camera. How was it? Because Mel didn't tell me nothing. Mee-Mee stared at her, silence. Then that little smile, the one that gave absolutely everything away. I understand now, Mee-Mee said. Jenny blinked. Understand what? Mee-Mee shook her head. I understand why Katrina lost her mind. A beat. That's all I'm saying. Jenny's eyes grew wide. Then she threw her head back, laughing. Ooh. Jenny pointed at the screen, lowering her voice. It's always the quiet ones. Mee-Mee covered her face. Jenny. They both dissolved into laughter. What girl? I'm happy for you. Just then, a shadow fell across the doorway. Joo-Won, 2 coffees in his hands. He looked at Mee-Mee, then at the phone. And back at Mee-Mee. He didn't say a word, just looked at her. Mee-Mee's smile disappeared. Jenny spotted him. Her grin somehow got even bigger. Well, Jenny said, the man of the hour has arrived. Mee-Mee's eyes widened. She pointed frantically at the phone. Jenny, I gotta go. Mee-Mee, Jenny begged. The call disconnected. Silence. Joo-Won walked over, raised one eyebrow. Mee-Mee smiled nervously. So, how long have you been standing there, Juju? A while, she swallowed. How much did you hear? He looked at her. Enough. Silence. They stared at each other. 1 second, 2, 3. Joo-Won calmly set both coffees on the table. Without a word, he turned and headed for the door. Mee-Mee let out the breath she'd been holding. Maybe, just maybe, he hadn't heard everything. The moment he reached the doorway, he stopped, a beat, without turning around. She understands. Mee-Mee's eyes flew open. Juju. Joo-Won laughed. Mee-Mee buried her face in her hands before breaking into laughter herself. The following afternoon in LA at the Kairos 5 dance studio, every mirror gleamed. Every speaker had been tested. Every strip of tape marking formations was perfectly straight. Seo-Jun liked it that way. Ji-sun stepped inside carrying a tablet. The tour resumes in 2 weeks as soon as Joo-Won is back. I know. You need new choreography. I know. The metrics say something fresher. I know. No pressure. I know, she smiled. Good. She started to leave, then paused. Seo-Jun, he looked up. Yes, try not to count everything. A beat. He looked offended. I don't. Ji-sun raised an eyebrow, then walked out, and as she was leaving, Adrienne was arriving. She stepped inside, and just for a second, time slowed. Seo-Jun noticed her. She was gorgeous. Bralette, baggy jorts, and a smile that would stop traffic. Adrienne noticed him too, handsome, fit, not a hair out of place. Neither acknowledged it. Instead, she looked around. Blue tape, yellow tape, white tape, everywhere. She slowly turned in a circle. K-pop. She pointed toward the floor. Look at all these tape marks. Seo-Jun nodded. Yes, they're everywhere. Yes, she smiled. You like lines? I like organization, she laughed. Okay. Seo-Jun picked up the remote. Music filled the room. Without another word, he danced. Every movement was sharp, precise, controlled. Every count landed exactly where he intended. He was not just good, he was extraordinary. The reason millions of fans around the world knew his name. When the music stopped, Adrienne nodded. Okay. Seo-Jun waited. She smiled. See you. A pause. You ain't playing. He raised an eyebrow. She continued. That was really good. She laughed. Actually, you're incredible. A beat. Come on, you know that. Then she smiled. Seo-Jun sighed. I knew there was a but. Adrienne walked toward the mirror. The reason Kairos 5 became the biggest group in the world. A beat. Your synchronization is insane. Seo-Jun watched her reflection. But, she turned, the audience already knows how perfectly you move together. Silence. They don't know how you move alone. That landed. Seo-Jun looked away. I want to change that, give them a taste of something different. Adrienne looked back at him. What do you mean? The new tour. He walked toward the wall where photos of Kairos 5 covered the space. Everyone knows our group. Our sound, our formations, our synchronization. He pointed to the 5 members. But they don't really know our individual dance styles. A beat. I want every member to have a solo. Adrienne smiled slightly. Oh, so that's why I'm here. Seo-Jun nodded. I watched you at the reception, was impressed because I know choreography. I know how to build a performance, but I don't know how to make it feel like me. Adrienne smiled. Now we're getting somewhere, K-pop. You want to learn how to groove. The studio door suddenly opened. Dae-Hyun walked in carrying coffee. Oh, he stopped. Looked at her, then smiled. So you're the famous Adrienne, she laughed. I don't know about famous, but yes, I'm her. Dae-Hyun winked. Oh, you're being modest. You choreograph for all the big rappers. Adrienne smiled. Look at you. Someone has done their homework. Then he really looked at her for a moment and said, I love your hair. Adrienne touched it. Appreciate you. It's different from the wedding, right? She smiled. Yeah, a beat. You noticed. Dae-Hyun shrugged. You're hard not to notice. She laughed. He lifted the coffee. You drink coffee. Before Adrienne could answer, Seo-Jun spoke. She's working. Silence. Dae-Hyun slowly turned. I was talking to her. Seo-Jun nodded. I know. Another beat. Seo-Jun repeated, we're working. Adrienne looked between them and smiled. Dae-Hyun blinked, then looked at Seo-Jun, really looked at him. He was acting out of pocket. Something clicked. Dae-Hyun said, interesting. Seo-Jun frowned. What? Dae-Hyun smiled. Nothing, bro. He handed Seo-Jun the coffee. Back to work. A beat. I'll get out of your hair. He looked at Adrienne. Welcome to LA, then he walked out. Adrienne waited a moment. Then she said, you do that often. Seo-Jun looked confused. Do what? Answer for people. A pause, he thought about it. No, she smiled. She nodded toward the speakers. Okay, show me how you find your groove. The music started. Adrienne stepped forward. No choreography. Seo-Jun frowned. No choreography? No, she pointed toward the floor. No tape. Then toward the mirrors. No mirrors. A beat, just music. Seo-Jun listened. At first nothing. He was thinking, counting, analyzing. Adrienne smiled. There. What? That's what we're fixing. She walked closer. My guy. A small smile. You dance like you're responsible for everyone. Silence. She nodded. You've spent your whole career making sure everyone lands together. A beat. I should know. I choreograph too. But sometimes, she pointed toward him. You gotta let yourself land somewhere different. She grabbed the remote. Play Cuffing Season. Seo-Jun said, you know our song. Adrienne laughed. Who doesn't know that song? Adrienne didn't count. She didn't mark steps. She didn't look for approval. She simply listened. The music moved through her before she ever moved with it. A little hip-hop, a little jazz, a little Caribbean rhythm, a little ballet. Years of training blended into something completely her own. Seo-Jun watched. Not because she was performing, because she was free. Slowly, he stopped thinking. His shoulder moved, then another. Then he slowly moved his hips. He felt the beat, a small shift, a different rhythm. Adrienne smiled. There you go, K-pop, that's a good start. Seo-Jun smiled without realizing it. The studio door opened again. Dae-Hyun walked in. He stopped, looked at them, then smiled. You were doing my signature dance. A beat. I know body rolling when I see it. Seo-Jun shot him a look. Dae-Hyun immediately raised his hands. Sorry. He grabbed his jacket. I left this. Then he looked at Adrienne. You later. As he walked out, he body rolled. Adrienne burst into laughter. I like him. Seo-Jun tried not to smile. Failed. Because honestly, who could stay annoyed with Dae-Hyun? No one. After another hour of dancing, Adrienne grabbed her water bottle. She twisted the cap. Nothing. She tried again, still stuck. Without a word, Seo-Jun reached over, took the bottle. Their fingers brushed just a little longer than necessary. He opened it effortlessly, then handed it back, never breaking eye contact. Thanks, he nodded, then returned to the speakers, as though nothing had happened. Adrienne watched him from the corner of her eye, letting her gaze travel from head to toe. She was smiling, just a little. Across the ocean in the kingdom of Avaleria, however, there wasn't much to smile about. Mee-Mee and Adrienne's first cousin, Princess Mel, sat behind her desk at the palace, reviewing a stack of documents. As the former owner of a successful event planning business, she'd brought those same organizational skills to the royal chamberlain's office, working alongside Ingrid to oversee the palace's biggest ceremonial events. Even after 2 years, a faction of the court still believed she wasn't the right match for the prince. With every flawless event, every successful state visit, every impossible deadline she met was another opportunity to prove them wrong. Mel was focused and in control until her phone rang. It was Mee-Mee. Mel smiled before answering. Good morning, Mrs. Park. Mee-Mee laughed. Don't start, cuz. I haven't said anything. You didn't have to. Mel smiled. How's married life? A pause. Mel, what? You know exactly what you're asking. Mel laughed. I do. I'm surprised Jenny hasn't asked yet. Just then Joo-Won appeared in the doorway. Mee-Mee said, it's time to get on the speedboat. Love you. Mel smiled. Love you. About an hour later, Mel's phone rang again. It was Adrienne. She answered. All the cousins are calling me today. Mel, the excitement in Adrienne's voice was impossible to miss. Yeah, I think Seo-Jun is, she stopped. Mel smiled. Is, a pause, nothing. You called me to say nothing. Adrienne laughed. He's just a beat. He's really talented. Mel listened. He's disciplined. Another pause. He doesn't even realize how good he is. Mel leaned back in her chair and started smiling wide. What am I going to do with Yul and your K-pop romances? A beat. Who said anything about romance? Adrienne shot back. We're just dancing together. Sure, and my man ain't fine. Adrienne burst into laughter. Just then, Prince Soren stepped into the room wearing a knowing smile. Princess Mel, he said. Mel looked up. Yes. I believe you promised me some of your attention before the meeting. Adrienne laughed even harder. Ooh, you two need to be studied. Mel chuckled. Why don't you finish studying your slow dance moves? Adrienne cackled. Soren winked. Mel looked back at the phone. 'Cause I gotta go, but keep me posted. Mel, Adrienne whined, too late. Mel had already hung up. Meanwhile, a Royal Initiative meeting was happening. Budgets, schedules, security, travel, everything had a solution, because Ingrid always had a solution. She sat at the table, perfectly composed, taking notes, answering questions, until she was unexpectedly very quiet. Ingrid! Someone said nothing. Ingrid! Someone else said still nothing. A third time, Ingrid, she blinked, excuse me. The room fell silent. Because Ingrid never missed anything, she certainly never daydreamed. Yet there she was, smack in the middle of a flashback. She glanced down at her notes. I'm sorry, please continue. The meeting moved on, but Mel noticed. She always noticed. After the meeting, Mel followed Ingrid into the ladies' room. Ingrid stood at the mirror reapplying her signature Gucci matte red lipstick. Mel gently touched her shoulder. Ingrid, are you okay? Princess, I'm perfectly fine. Mel tilted her head. What were you thinking about earlier? Ingrid's cheeks flushed. Mel leaned back. Wait, it's not a what, it's a who. A grin spread across her face. Who were you thinking about? Ingrid didn't look up. No one. A beat. Mel nodded slowly. That's different. Ingrid finally looked at her. What's that supposed to mean? Mel smiled. It means you are many things, Ingrid. A pause. Unfocused has never been one of them. Ingrid opened her mouth, then closed it. Because unfortunately, Mel was right. She tapped Ingrid on the shoulder. When you're ready, I'd love to hear who's gotten the great Ingrid hot and bothered. But then her phone buzzed. She looked at it. Rosie had just arrived. Mel looked back at Ingrid. She's going to help with the initiative. I'm going to get her. Wanna have tea later? Ingrid. I'd like that very much, Princess Mel, but I assure you there's nothing to talk about. Mel laughed. I'm the oldest cousin in my family. I've been detecting crushes since middle school. That's a lie. But I'll let you keep it for now. She chuckled, leaving Ingrid staring in the mirror. When Rosie entered the castle's interior, Edward was already there. Working, always working. She watched him for a moment. Even exhausted, he was unfairly handsome. Tall, broad shoulders, hazel eyes that somehow still managed to sparkle beneath the weight of another sleepless night. Dressed in both rowing blazers and Ralph Lauren, that effortless preppy charm of his still did something to her. But today she noticed the things others might miss. The tiredness around his eyes, the slight redness in them. The fact that he was running on empty. You haven't slept, she said. Edward looked up. The second he saw her, the exhaustion on his face softened. Rosie. He walked quickly to her, wrapping her in a warm hug. She melted into him, closing her eyes for just a second before he kissed her gently on the cheek. Neither have you, he said. She smiled. I'm not the one carrying the weight of a kingdom. Edward looked at her. And you're not carrying less. Ever since Mel gave you her event business in the States. Their eyes held. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. They both understood. Sir Edward. They turned. One of the palace staff stood waiting. His Royal Highness needs you. Edward let out the smallest sigh. Duty calls. Rosie nodded, even though she hated those words. He squeezed her hand once before letting go. I'll find you later. Then he was gone. Rosie watched him leave. She sat in the waiting room, staring at the spot where Edward had disappeared. Mel had texted that she was on her way to get her. You know, Rosie looked up. A man stood nearby holding a coffee, studying her with the calm confidence of someone who missed very little. Askel, head of intelligence for the kingdom, always composed, always 2 steps ahead. Dressed in brioni, he looked less like a spy and more like someone who had accidentally walked out of a luxury magazine. You're very good at disappearing into a room. Rosie blinked. Is that a compliment? Askel considered the question. It's an observation. A pause. Then, almost as an afterthought, though most people don't disappear while still being the most noticeable person in the room. Rosie smiled despite herself. Is that another observation? He smiled. I have several. She laughed softly. Askel glanced toward the hallway where Edward had gone. Your friend is good at disappearing too. Rosie tilted her head. My friend? Edward. Silence. He does that. Rosie smiled slightly. He's always busy. That's why he disappears. Askel nodded. Interesting. Rosie looked at him. What? You defend him quickly. A beat. Rosie studied him. Is that another observation? Askel took a sip of coffee, a very accurate one. Then so, Rosie looked at him so. Are you and Edward together? The question caught her off guard. Silence. Rosie looked away. It's complicated. Askel studied her. I don't think it is. That caught her attention. What does that mean? A pause. It means, he chose his words carefully. You already know the answer. Rosie didn't respond. Because maybe she did. Askel waited. No pressure, no expectation, just patience. Then his expression softened slightly. You know, I never got to finish that dance with you. Rosie looked up. At the wedding? He nodded. Edward interrupted. She smiled. He does that. Askel smiled. I noticed. A beat. I was thinking. Maybe we could finish that conversation another way. Rosie tilted her head. How? Dinner? She looked surprised. Dinner? Yes, and then he paused before saying, because I'd like to know you better. Not because of they had a project to work on, not because she was close to the royal family, just her. Rosie smiled. Okay. Askel nodded. Tomorrow. For a moment, Rosie didn't know what to say because she wasn't used to being asked so directly. But Askel was confident, kind, easy on the eyes, and standing close enough that she caught the faint scent of him. Something warm, sage, a hint of spice, comforting. She smiled. Sure. Askel returned the smile, then walked away, leaving Rosie standing there wondering why a simple question felt so complicated, and whether saying yes to Askel had somehow made everything even more complicated. Hey, loves, sometimes the easiest thing to miss is what's right in front of you the entire time. What do you think will happen if Edward sees Rosie out with Askel? Please keep listening and find out. Oh, and subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate your support. Let's get back to this little drama at the palace. The next evening, outside the royal gardens, Edward walked through the courtyard. His mind was still on the endless list of responsibilities waiting for him, until he heard laughter. He stopped, because he knew that laugh. Rosie. He looked ahead, and there she was, walking beside Askel, smiling. Really smiling. Askel said something quietly. Rosie laughed again, and Edward froze because that was the laugh he loved, the one he always wanted to hear. Maybe it was nothing, but then he saw Askel grab her hand. Rosie stopped, looked surprised, but didn't let go. And at that very shocking moment, time slowed for Edward. The memories came, not all at once, just pieces from the past few months. Askel standing beside him during a difficult assignment. You like the cute one with the bob, right? Edward looked over. Who? Rosie. But then he got so busy that he never actually answered the question. Then sometime later, did you call Rosie back? I will. Askel raised an eyebrow. Edward, you said that a few hours ago. Another memory, Askel asking, have you flown to Petersburg, see her yet? Edward sighed. I will when things calm down around here. Askel simply nodded. Then, a few days ago, at Mee-Mee's wedding, Rosie and Edward both had been working it. He promised himself he'd find time for her. One dance, one conversation, something that belonged only to them. But there was always something, another problem, another responsibility, another person who needed him, another Ingrid request. And then he saw Askel dancing with her. Of course, he stepped in. Wasn't going to let that slide because Rosie mattered, because what they had mattered. Maybe she wasn't officially his, but somewhere along the way he had started believing she would be. After all they had shared, the kisses, the conversations, the moments no one else saw, he thought there would always be more time, but the reception ended, and the moment never came, and now only a few days later, there they were, the same pattern, the responsibilities waiting, and he thought, I can't right now, I'll pick her up afterwards. A beat. But that was what he always said. While Edward was waiting for the perfect moment, Askel just slid in, not replacing him, not betraying him. Just being there, and suddenly Edward understood. The man who had spent months trying to convince him get closer to Rosie was now the man standing beside her. Later that evening, Edward found Askel alone. The silence between them said everything. Never one to avoid the smoke, Edward asked, how long? Askel looked up. How long what? Edward swallowed. How long have you liked her? A long pause. Askel didn't answer right away, because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't one moment. One conversation, one day. It was every time he saw Rosie smile at a distance, every time he noticed the way she carried herself, every time he reminded himself she was not his to want. Finally, Askel looked at him. I don't know, A beat. But I really do. Edward looked away because somehow that answer hurt more. Not because Askel had done something wrong, but because he hadn't. Edward wanted to be angry. He wanted to blame someone. He wanted to punch Askel. Wanted to yank him by that suit collar and throw him to the wall. But the truth was the person he was really angry with was himself. Because somewhere along the way he had started believing there would always be more time. More time after the next assignment. More time after the next crisis. But life was starting to move without him. And for the first time, Edward realized waiting was no longer an option. The next morning, LA was only beginning to wake up. Adrienne walked into the Kairos 5 dance studio carrying her dance bag. The lights were already on. Music played softly through the speakers. Seo-Jun was stretching. He looked up. Good morning. Adrienne checked her watch, then looked back at him. It's 6 o'clock. Yes, she laughed, but we're not filming a music video. No, we don't have a call time. No, she folded her arms, so why do you have us up in here before the sun is even up? Seo-Jun answered as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. The brain acquires new movement patterns more efficiently in the morning. Adrienne stared at him. You made that up. I didn't. She shook her head. I'm going to ask Chad about that later. Seo-Jun smiled just a little and Adrienne noticed. She also noticed the table nearby. 2 coffees, a fresh fruit board, artisanal pastries, yogurt, organic, non-GMO protein bars. She looked back at him. Wow, you got breakfast. Seo-Jun nodded. Just a little something. Adrienne laughed. A little something? Seo-Jun continued. I wanted to prevent unnecessary interruptions. What interruptions? Another tiny smile, then Seo-Jun said, Dae-Hyun. Adrienne laughed. That's actually funny. Seo-Jun handed her a coffee. She took a sip, her eyebrows lifted. Ooh, this is good. Seo-Jun smiled again with quiet satisfaction. Adrienne looked at him over the rim of the cup. I was thinking about you last night. Seo-Jun sat just a little straighter. She noticed, pretended not to. My grandmother used to quote a scripture to me all the time, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I didn't really understand it when I was younger, but I do now. She looked around the studio. You've trained your body for years, your discipline is incredible, but your mind, she tapped gently against her temple, still thinks every move has to be perfect. Seo-Jun listened quietly. I believe the Holy Spirit works from the inside out. The light he puts in us eventually shows up on the outside. I think dancing kinda works the same way, she smiled. You always keep it cool, but maybe try changing what you're thinking. It's okay just to feel. Silence settled between them. Finally, Seo-Jun nodded. Okay, let's try it. Adrienne smiled. Good. She set her coffee down. Now let's stop thinking and start listening. She walked toward the center of the room. No slow beats today either, although that cuffing season is my song. She started finger clapping, then said, I get dressed to it. Seo-Jun eyebrows raised. You do? Stay focused, K-pop, she laughed. He shook his head like that wasn't what he meant, but of course it was. Seo-Jun clicked the remote and said, Joo-Won produced this before the wedding. Let's just say its hits a little different, and as you can see, I removed all the tape. She looked around and nodded. I see you. Then the speakers came alive.
Kairos 5. We move like. Yeah. Kairos 5, I got Kairos 5. We move like. Kimmy sliding clean, gold on grand, mean machine. Joo-Won got the flow bent low, one look hit, then the whole room knows. June cut short, too smooth, too cold. Mean Q flips that post, then he let it roll. Dae-Hyun in the back, then he take that lead. Kairos 5, yeah, we run that heat. Smooth with it, nasty with it. Step to the light, then we mask and eat it up on stage. No doubt, hands in the air when we locking now. Bring that heat. Bring that heat. Kairos 5. Bring that heat.
Adrienne was bopping her head. Okay, I see you, Kairos 5. Seo-Jun laughed. That's heat for real, she said with the biggest smile, but then tilted her head and was all business. Adrienne said, hit that floor, Seo-Jun. Yes, ma'am, he obeyed, but he also did something else. He took his shirt off, for more flexibility, of course. Adrienne froze, not because she hadn't seen a man without a shirt before, because she had not expected that man to look like that. Good gracious, she thought before quickly looking away to collect herself. Okay, a breath. She counted to 10, then turned around. Whatcha waiting for, K-pop? Dance. At first, Seo-Jun did what he had always done. He wasn't dancing, he was calculating. Adrienne watched for a moment, then smiled. You did it again, show me how you move. She reached for his hand, instructional, nothing more, but the contact surprised him. Quit leading, she said. He blinked. Leaders lead. She smiled. Not today. Today you follow. For the first time in years, Seo-Jun stopped trying to control the music. Instead, he let his body connect to the beat. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing slowed. He bounced, rocked, and swayed, stuck his tongue out, a natural groove. Adrienne pointed immediately. Okay, you understood that assignment. Seo-Jun stopped. What? You ate, she grinned, then said, you know what, never mind, that's your groove. The rest of the morning disappeared beneath music, laughter, and movement. Until Adrienne's phone rang. She looked at the screen, a music producer. I've got a video shoot. Seo-Jun nodded. I understand. She gathered her things, slowly, almost reluctantly. It's been real K-pop, she smiled. Thanks for trusting me. She turned toward the door. Adrienne. She stopped, turned back. Seo-Jun crossed the room. He gently took her hand. He looked into her eyes. Thank you. She smiled. For what? For helping me find something that was there all along. The words stayed with her. She didn't say anything. She simply stepped closer. And it was like she could not help herself anymore. She kissed him on the cheek, softly, tenderly, like a question. When she pulled away, Seo-Jun looked at her for one quiet moment, and then something shifted. The hesitation was gone. He pulled her closer, not rushed, not uncertain, just sure. His hand gently found the side of her face as he looked at her, giving her every opportunity to step away. She didn't, and he kissed her. A real kiss, a deep kiss. This kiss was different, longer, certain. The careful choreographer who counted every beat had disappeared. Adrienne smiled into the kiss, surprised by the confidence she hadn't expected. Her hand rested lightly against his chest. Neither of them seemed interested in letting go. Then the studio door opened. Dae-Hyun stepped inside carrying a tray of coffees. Does anybody want a? He stopped. Seo-Jun and Adrienne never even looked up. Dae-Hyun blinked once. Then slowly smiled to himself. I'll see myself out. He quietly backed out of the room, pulling the door closed behind him. The latch clicked. Only then Seo-Jun and Adrienne finally broke apart. They looked at each other, then simultaneously looked toward the door. Adrienne covered her face. Seo-Jun closed his eyes and said, Dae-Hyun! From somewhere in the hallway his voice floated back through the door. Proud of you! Silence. Then Adrienne burst into laughter. A second later, Seo-Jun did too. In the Maldives, morning light filled the bungalow. The ocean hummed outside. Inside, Mee-Mee slowly woke. Her bonnet was once again nowhere near her head, somewhere tossed off and on the floor. She opened her eyes and immediately smiled because Joo-Won was already awake. Of course he was. He sat nearby, looking out at the ocean, a cup of coffee in his hand. She watched him for a moment. You've been awake for hours, haven't you? He turned. That small smile appeared. The one fans knew. Yes, I worked out. She shook her head, of course. A beat. She looked around the bungalow, then back at him. You know what I realized? What? She smiled. For years, everyone watched you dance. Joo-Won listened. They saw the precision. She thought for a second, trying to articulate what was on her mind. She continued. They saw the control, the discipline. She studied him. You trained your entire life to be the best. He stayed quiet because he knew there was more. And I think I finally understand something. She gestured around the room. Their scattered clothes, her thrown shoes. All that training, she smiled wickedly, those skills were transferable. Joo-Won eyebrows shot up but then laughed, a real laugh, a hard laugh. Mee-Mee, he started. No, I'm serious. She sat up. You pay attention to everything. A softer moment. When you dance, you feel every beat. When you write music, you hear every note. And when you're with me, she looked at him, you notice absolutely everything. For a moment, the teasing disappeared because she wasn't joking anymore. Joo-Won looked at her. You're my wife. Like that explained everything. Like there was no other answer. Mee-Mee smiled, because it did. The world saw the superstar. The fans saw the performer, but she knew the man, the one who noticed, the one who listened, the one who loved her in all the quiet ways. She reached for his hand. You're really something, you know that? Joo-Won looked down at their hands, then at the rings. Then back at her, I love you. And somehow, after everything they went through to get here, those 4 words still felt like the biggest thing he had ever said. They sat together. No cameras, no fans, no expectations, just husband and wife. Exactly where they were meant to be. A moment passed. Then Mee-Mee looked toward the kitchen. A beautifully arranged plate of sushi sat waiting. She smiled. Also, Joo-Won raised an eyebrow again. What? She pointed. Sushi for breakfast. A pause. I thought you liked sushi. I do. Another beat. But breakfast? Joo-Won looked completely serious. When in the Maldives, she laughed. Joo-Won took another sip of coffee almost casually. Besides, you're not supposed to eat heavy after a big workout. A beat, Mee-Mee froze, her eyes narrowed slightly. She immediately started laughing, then grabbed her pillow. "Oh, you're unbelievable." She threw it. He caught it effortlessly with one hand. The coffee never moved. Mee-Mee stopped. "See? That's exactly what I'm talking about." Joo-Won set the coffee down. She pointed at him, then said, "Skill sets." For a moment, he just looked at her. Then, that smile appeared, not the public one, not the stage smile, the one only she got to see, then slowly moved back toward her, face to face. That familiar, quiet confidence returning. Mee-Mee laughed. "I can't believe I said Dae-Hyun was impossible." A beat. "You're the impossible one." Joo-Won smiled. "And yet," he leaned closer, "you married me." Mee-Mee smiled. The teasing faded because there was truth underneath it. She smiled. "Best decision ever." And this time, she leaned in first. He kissed her gently, not as a superstar, not as a performer, just as her husband. And outside, the ocean kept moving. Hey loves, if you found yourself replaying the music from Joo-Won and Mee-Mee's story, we have good news. Joo-Won's Part 2 album is officially here. Featuring fan favorites from the series including Cuffing Season, Mee-Mee's bridal gown songs, the new banger Now That We're Married, and more from episode 8 to this one. Part 1 and Part 2 are both available on Apple Music, Spotify, Instagram, and 20 other streaming platforms. We're adding more platforms per day. So whether you want to relive the first public kiss, the engagement, the wedding, the honeymoon, or just keep Joo-Won's voice on repeat, the music is waiting for you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment and tell us your favorite moment. And share this with someone who believes love is still worth celebrating. Because around here, the story isn't over yet. Have a merry every little thing.
I kept my hands to myself, like a promise on the shelf. Kept the fire in my chest, kept my wanting underdressed. But you look at me like that, and it all comes rushing back. All the nights I made it through, waiting just to get to you. Now the ring is on my hand. Now I know I can love you out loud, love you slow, let it show. Now that we're married, I can hold you close. Now that we're married, I can want you most. Kiss me like you mean it, hold me like you need it. Now that we're married, my hands can roam free. Now that we're married, you belong to me. Morning skin satin sheets, barefoot steps across the room. You in my shirt, I in your smile, got me lost in every move. I've been patient, I've been good, held that tension like I should. But tonight I let it breathe, every little yes in me. Now the ring is on my hand, now I understand. I don't have to hide, I don't have to hold, baby, let it go. Now that we're married, I can hold you close. Now that we're married, I can want you most. Kiss me like you mean it, hold me like you need it. Now that we're married, my hands can roll free. Now that we're married, oh, you belong to me. All that waiting, hating for, all that wanting, you did for. Let me love you till we're spent. Give me everything you never said. Now that we're married, I can hold you close. Now that we're married, set free.